Hi everyone, hope you are well and safe. Welcome to a new series for securities trading training. And as promised for this week, I'll be discussing how to do proper due diligence for any investment or stock that you want to go into. So basically, in order to invest in any stock, obviously you want to learn more about the company. You want to learn whether they are legit or not, and what exactly are they doing? What is the sentiment out there about the stock itself? And what are people saying? Does it have a future? Is it too ambitious? What kind of institutes are investing into it, if it's of course a NASDAQ stock, or even if it's an OTC stock and it is growing massively. For example, Enzalytics, we know that there's a lot of investors who are investing into the stock. And when I talk about investors, I'm not talking about retail investors. I'm more interested into institutional investors. But of course, that's more common for stocks that are on the NASDAQ exchange or the New York Stock Exchange and what have you. But for OTC, there's a different way of doing your due diligence. And for NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, there's also a different way. They're actually pretty similar, but the availability of the information on the NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange is much more than that for the OTC. Okay, so I'll be doing this comprehensive due diligence exercise on a couple of tickers. Obviously, I did not prepare for this. As usual, I do this based on what I typically would do whenever I want to invest or I'm interested in investing into a certain stock. So I'll start with the OTC market, and for this exercise, I'm going to pick what should I pick? Let's pick LCLP, for example. Okay, so LCLP is Life Clips Incorporated. So I'm interested in investing into that. Now that's the first step. Now I need to understand more about Life Clips and see whether it's a real company or it's actually a fake, especially because it's on OTC. There are a lot of scams out there. Of course, with the new ruling now, they're making it more and more difficult for scams to be sustainable because of all the financials that they have to submit. They have to submit their board of directors, their location, what kind of work they're doing, and all the other information. So before I even, although I obviously the chart is very important to me personally, but before even going there, we need to find out whether the company is legit or not. So the very first thing I do is I go to OTC markets. Okay, so let me start from the very beginning. So I go to OTC markets. That's the main website right there. And then I go and look for LCLP. Okay, Life Clips. So very first thing that I look at is that it's pink. So it's pink current. They've submitted all their information, and they're up to date right now. So very good. Now, let's go to the securities details. That's the next thing that I actually check right away. So I look at the security details. I see that the last update was on the 3rd of September, and we know that they have an authorized number of shares of 5 billion. Now, remember, authorized number of shares is actually the total number of shares that the company is permitted to issue at the beginning of their incorporation. So they've decided it's 5 billion. Now remember that in case they want to increase that number, they have to do a complete different filing. It's as if they need to reincorporate once again or make an amendment and then submit that in order to increase it as well. It's not an easy process when you want to increase the authorized number of shares. Okay. Now, the outstanding shares is the next thing I look at, and I noticed that it's 1,574,000 shares. Now, the outstanding shares, to remind you, is the number. It's a subset of the authorized shares. It is actually the number of shares out there that are used by the company, and along with the ones that are available on the market for trading, which is what we call the float. Now, remember, this number right here, the 1.574 billion, has both restricted and unrestricted number of shares. Now, those restricted shares are highlighted here below, as well as unrestricted. Unrestricted shares are those that are held, they're not traded or anything. They basically cannot be touched and should be put aside for later use or for any other reason. Now, unrestricted shares are normally those shares that are available for the company, either for their business operations or what have you. Or also part of it, a subset of this number, is the float. And the float, as you can see right here, is indicated as 42,699,585. The last time it was updated is on the 28th of December 2016. So I know this number is most likely wrong. Now, given that, what options do I have? Okay. First option I have is I could say that 1.481, which are the unrestricted shares, is actually the number of shares that are available and could potentially be the float. However, if I want to be more precise, which I normally do, then I go to the disclosures. And the very first thing I do is I start to see the filings. Now, one thing that I like here is that OTC disclosure and news. Normally companies list their 8K or the 10K quarterly report or the annual report under OTC disclosures and news. And that typically is less strict versus when you submit things to the SEC filings. SEC is more, they review things very closely and make sure that there is no scams out there or you're not putting out wrong information. Now, for this case, we see that they submitted their information directly with the SEC, which is great news. Now, the next level of importance is whether the information that is being submitted is audited or unaudited. Now, if it's audited, that means that the company actually went ahead and spent more money. It's an expensive process to get your financials audited by a financial firm, and especially if because it's a third party external to the company. Now, this auditing process is not a showstopper. I'm not saying that if it's not audited, then it's not legit. No, because normally getting things audited means that one, you are preparing for uplisting, for example, to, I don't know, OTCQB, to, for example, that's what TLSS did recently. They got all their information audited, financials, and that's what allowed them to upgrade from OTC to OTCQB. In this case, we're looking at the 8K right here, and we don't know whether it's audited or not. But before even going there, we look at the period end date. So this 8K is actually for the period ending 26th of August 2021. So they're actually very current with the information that they're providing. So next step, I click on the 8K. Okay, so there you go, the 8K report that we have, and we start looking at the information that they provided. So we do have their address right here. We can go ahead and validate whether this is an office or whether it is simply I don't know, a house or what have you, by putting this information into Google and finding out what it is and where it is on Google Maps. Okay, so next thing we can actually look at is, or what I look at normally, this is an 8K that they provided. Financial exhibits, there you go, financial exhibits are provided later on. This 8K was pertaining to the fact that they actually acquired Belfrix. So this is a recent acquisition that they've done of Belfrix, and they decided to issue an 8K to make it even more official with the SEC. So this is great. So we know that they've shared this information on Twitter, and we'll go through that shortly. But in order to make it more legit, then they submitted to the SEC confirming this. So this gives me more of a boost of confidence that yes, these guys are not lying. They're actually providing legit information. Okay, so let's close this down and look at this 8K as well. So this 8K, this was a resignation of William Singer. And this statement right here, although sometimes they actually do not state the reason behind the resignation, the real reason, but still, what's written right here, the resignation was not the result of disagreements with the company, and a copy of the letter is maintained right here. So you can actually read the letter and see to whom it may concern. Effective as of date, I hereby resign from all positions with Life Clips, blah blah blah. I'm excited for the next phase and couldn't be happier with the opportunities that are ahead. So again, nothing too concerning in William Singer's letter of resignation. Okay, so no, I'm trying to find their financial. There you go. The 31st of March 2021. There you go. There's the financials right here. Let's look at another 8K. This is all part of the due diligence. You keep on reading. Contains forward-looking statements. Okay. Okay. So this was for the Belfrix acquisition and the details around it. Belfrix shareholders can earn up to an additional $15 million by reaching certain milestones. So it gives you all the detail about the acquisition. The company agreed to provide them $10 million in funding for the continued development of the Belfrix platform. So again, this is all related to Belfrix, but 10Q, is what I want to look at. This includes the financials for the company. So we go into the financials, and we first thing I start looking at their assets. So how many assets they have? So they have a total of dollars of $39,303 of assets, and then you compare it to 2020 and see that it actually increased. Now this number, obviously, as we all know, is not accurate anymore because they've acquired Belfrix, so the assets are much more at this point in time. I look at their liabilities and shareholders deficits and notice that it's $10,192,000. So when comparing it to 2020, we notice that it's less liabilities, so that's great. So the company is definitely heading in the right direction, eliminating debt and what have you. Then we look at the revenues. This is for March. This is for the 3 and 9 months ending March 31st, 2021. We look at the operational costs, how much they're losing money because of their operations. We see here 91,000, 88,000. Also, if you compare it, this is for 3 months. For 9 months, they were losing much more. So again, the things are, well, it's a longer period of time, so it's definitely expected to have larger numbers. But again, remember, these OTC companies, a lot of them are working under a loss. Not a lot of them have revenues to establish. However, we know that with Belfrix, for example, they're going to get a lot of revenue because of Belfrix is one of the exchanges that are getting well known. They've actually been identified as one of the most innovative exchanges out there. They were in the Magic Quadrant, and so forth. But so how do I know that? Obviously, I know that because I looked at Twitter, and this is part of the things that you verify. Now, look at this right here. You notice it's unaudited. So they definitely did not audit these financials. So you know that these numbers have been provided by the company based on their own information, not by, and have not been verified by a third-party company as well. So cash flows from operational expenses, net income and loss is normally in brackets, as you can see right here. So let's look at this. Cash flows from operating activities, and net, you can see that by March 31st, 2021, they had 8 million cash flow from operating activities. Now, when you compare it to a year ago, they were minus 7.9 million. So that's a quite an increase. So that's great news now. Now, what led to this drastic increase? If you actually look right here, the next line, you'll notice that a change in fair value of derivative liabilities. They got they improved that number. So before it was costing them a lot. Now they're actually making money out of it. So that's predominantly the reason why they ended up with such cash flow. Now, if we look at then the rest of the information is actually details that if you're interested in to look at to learn more about the company, then great, you can do that. Convertible debt, their convertible debt you can see right here. So they do have a slight increase in comparison to 2020, but again, this is all part of the process that you need to verify if the company is legit or not. Again, if you want to learn more about, read all the details about what this report actually means, you can go through all of that. Now, I don't see the number of shares right here, so let's go back again and ask more. And blah blah blah. 1A, that's the form. So look at this. This is actually audited, the information that they've done. So it's great right here. So again, it's not what I'm looking for right now is actually the number of shares. Let's look at just INCC for 2 seconds. Since I don't want to bore you with all the details, if we look at INCC, for example, their financials, and if we look at the quarterly report right here, this is one of the things that I verify, then it normally tells you right here as of, oh, it's actually cut. Let's open another quarterly report. Here we go, amended one. It gives you the financials. So that's part of the due diligence. You need to open more and more reports in order to validate whether something is right or wrong. So there you go. For example, right here in the quarterly report, it tells you that the number of shares, of outstanding shares for the common stock are 7 billion as of the 30th of June 2021. Okay, and then you'll see that for the outstanding shares as of 31st of March 2021, so 3 months before that, it was 6,952,000. So it did increase slightly, nothing too drastic, but this is part of the things to validate. Now there is a section right here, security information, normally in reports, that tells you exactly how many do they have in the public float. Okay, so the public float tells me right here 6,215,949,000, etc. Now I need to check whether this is actually the accurate number. So the float right here, 6,215. So this, they have the float correct right here. Okay, so this is accurate information. So always check whether the information that is provided by OTC Markets is actually accurate or not. Okay, so let's close this and go back to Life Clips. So as I mentioned, in this case, this number is incorrect, the float, so they didn't update it, OTC Markets, so we know that this is wrong, but we can say that most likely 1.481 billion is the number of unrestricted shares that are in the float. Of course, if you want to continue digging, you can continue going through this list in order to validate more and more, but I think we should be fine with the number of information that we have found already in the financials. We know that this company is spending money on operations. We know that they've done acquisitions. So everything is pointing so far to it being legit. However, also we need to look at their website. So lifeclips.com. So I actually opened the website for you right here. So good. You look at the website, and they've actually updated their website, I see, because it was a bit different. Now you go to the section of about, gives you more about the company overview, and you can read more about the company, what exactly they're doing. We see that they're working also with cognitive apps, which is in the mental health space, artificial intelligence powered mental health analytics and so forth. We know that they also have the Belfrix group, and it gives you all about the exchange, the academy, and so forth. So this is also looks legit. And then we have AI powered mental health analytics platform. So there you go. That's the cognitive apps. So looks good so far. Now let's look at the team. Team is very important. Typically companies, okay, remember again, OTC, typically they're one person or two persons, or you know, very few people who are operating in the company, because it's an OTC. It's not NASDAQ or what have you. These people don't have a lot of cash on hand. Most of their money is coming out of the stock market, unless they have institutional investors or what have you. So we have the names of the CEO. We have the CFO right here. We have the director, another director. So this is for Praveen Kumar is for Belfrix. We have a representation for cognitive apps, Many Deep. And then we have, you know, the people who are actually running with Life Clips overall business. So we have representation from the overall business. We have representation from subsidiaries. Now, if you want to dig more, of course, and find out the number of employees and what have you, you're welcome to do that. They have investors overview right here. Okay, so you can get all the information about the company, their press releases. There you go. They've recently provided an update on the integration of Belfer groups and cognitive apps, events and presentations. This is actually quite comprehensive. So they don't have any upcoming events. SEC filings, they even have it right here. 8K reports. So everything that we found on OTC markets can also be found here. Quarterly reports. Okay, current reports, proxies. So proxies is any kind of agreements that have happened and so forth. But so far, so good. So everything is provided. Is there a way to contact this company? Yes, you can provide your query right here, your name and what have you, and submit this information. So there's also an email address to contact them. Now, sometimes companies have investor relations contact, which we don't have right here, which is fine because you can send the information right here. Again, this is OTC, this is not NASDAQ. They're not as organized as the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange folks. There's partnership inquiries that you can see right here. So perfect. This is looking good. And they even have Google Maps and shows you exactly where they are located. So this is actually looking good. Now, okay, so they do have a website. We've checked their OTC markets. Now, what we need to do is go on Twitter and see what the sentiment is about. How are people feeling about it? So we look at, or actually, let's see if they have a Twitter account. Life clips. There you go. So they actually have a Twitter account. And as you can see right here, the account is typically updated regularly, which is good news. Okay. I personally do not put so much attention to the Twitter account because what's important is the actual business and whether they're actually doing something or not. But of course, because it's OTC, a lot of people look at Twitter and there's normally hypes around it. So that's why I normally, for OTC, especially for OTC, I do pay attention to the actual Twitter account to see whether it's being updated or they're engaged or what have you. Now, we can also look at what people are saying. So is there a positive sentiment or if there's a negative sentiment? So you can see right here added 1.5 million between yesterday and today. So people, let's break that 0.04. People are actually quite active about the stock, and it's not like it's dead, nobody's talking about it or what have you. You have updates continuously coming through, which is exactly the thing that we need to pay attention to. Now remember, people normally get too excited about a certain stock when it's moving upwards, and they get pissed and mad at it when, especially in OTC, when it's not doing so well. So this is something that you need just to be cognizant of and not make it the sole motivation for your decision whether to invest in a stock or not. Your sole purpose of doing this investigation per se, or your due diligence, is to find out whether this company is legit or not. Okay, if it's legit, then you go to the chart and evaluate what exactly is it that you want to do and when do you want to enter. So after checking the sentiment, after checking that they have a Twitter account, after checking their website, after checking their financials, we come back to the actual stock on TradingView. and we start looking at how the chart is looking. Now, obviously, you hear every single day on Twitter that everything is pumping and dumping because people don't understand how things work. Unfortunately, in charting, this is actually a typical thing that happens all the time, not only in OTC but also in NASDAQ, in the New York Stock Exchange. This is a healthy retracement that we're having here, and I've actually discussed this video review just a couple of hours ago, so you can learn more about it. But we see that it has retraced, and maybe it's an opportunity to get in right now, and ride along. Now, of course, there are more to it. You have to look at the daily chart, you have to look at the weekly chart, and assess your entry as well. Now, I'm not going to go through this because this is not a technical analysis video. This is actually just to better understand how to do proper due diligence. If you want to learn more about the chart, I've actually done a technical analysis video a bit earlier, so you can learn more about it. So that's typically what I do for OTC. It's nothing that is too comprehensive. I just look for red flags more than anything. I look for red flags, and I look to validate whether the company is actually real or fake, or they're trying to pull a scam or what have you. Because the last thing you want is your hard-earned money to go in the loo because someone scammed you. So LCLP looks legit so far. Everything seems to be fine. They submit their financials to the SEC. They submit their annual reports. They submit their quarterly reports. They have subsidiaries. People are talking about it on Twitter. People are talking about it on Investors Hub. I haven't gone there because you can do that on your own. But in case you don't know what it is, let me just open a website. Investors Hub. There you go. That's the website for Investors Hub. If you want to look for LCLP, then you right here, LCLP, and then you life clips. You click on it, and it gives you all information. If you want to read also more about the sentiment that people have about life clips, you click on it, and then you go down at the bottom, and you have people discussing life clips. Look, they're discussing life clips at 2:41 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is, right now it's 2:52 a.m. So people are continuously talking about this stock, and you can click on each one of those and just explore even further. Okay. The NYSE management say they would send a PR. It would be a big catalyst Tuesday if the announced offering has closed and so forth. So that's one other thing. Now let's look at NASDAQ. So as I mentioned, NASDAQ due diligence or in New York Stock Exchange due diligence is slightly different than that of the OTC markets. In this case, you're looking, again, it's slightly different, but we're looking at the same things. We want to see if the company is legit, if they are actually, what kind of business they're in, who is investing in them, and so forth. So for this exercise, the company that I will be looking at, let's look at BBIG, for example, since it's hot and since it's everyone is talking about it. Vinco Ventures. Okay, so the first thing that I normally do, and I recommend this for everyone. Okay, I actually go to Yahoo. Okay, so there's Yahoo, and then I go BBIG, and I have information. Now there's a lot of information here. I don't care about all this. I look at statistics. Okay, So the statistics provide me with more information about the company now. Share statistics is what I'm very interested in. I can tell from here that they have 69.52 million shares outstanding. The float is 47.26. How many people are shorting the stock? Short percentage of the float as of August 13th, so a couple of weeks ago, is 21.06%. Now remember, this is a couple of weeks ago because this is being reported directly from the exchange. So exchanges do not provide a day-to-day update. So that's why there's a 2-week delay. Now, if you're interested in getting a more recent and current update, then you will need to use a scanner or use the services of things like Fintel. And this is what I'm going to next. So Fintel is like Benzinga and what have you. I heard a lot of good things about Benzinga, but I just like Fintel because it's very easy to use and it provides a lot of information that is useful. So Fintel, I go to this one and I type in BBIG. Okay, there you go, BBIG, Vinco Ventures, and click on search. Now, institutional ownership right there is one thing that I typically look at. And it's currently loading. Okay. So ownership accumulation score 97.68 out of 100. And this is basically provided by Fintel in order to evaluate. There you go. The ownership accumulation score is a result of sophisticated multi-factor quantitative model that identifies companies with the highest level of institutional accumulation. Okay, the scoring model uses a combination of the total increase in disclosed owners, the change in portfolio allocations in those owners, and other metrics. The number ranges from 0 to 100. Imagine 97.68%. That means that there's high institutional investments as well and ownership in this company. Now let me go down and see which institutions have actually invested into this. Now you can see a more comprehensive report. Of course, I have complete access because I'm a Fintel Pro, but you can see as of 30th of August, VEXMX Vanguard actually had a position. Average price at 325. They got 283,000 shares. And it tells you actually the change in ownership, 150% increase. So they've invested even more. Again, 325 is their price, and BBIG as of right now, let's just look quickly, is 7.98. So they've literally doubled their investment, more than doubled their investment. So what other, there you go, Vanguard again, they had 325. They bought it right here. Vanguard, Blackstone, Extended Market Index Fund, they bought even more. There's calls, there's puts. So it gives me an idea of the institutional investors. You can see that there's continuous investments that are happening into BBIG. So that's very important. Now, insiders, I want to see next, are insiders selling or what have you. So you can see right here the ownership. There you go. It tells you right here. This is actually quite an amazing tool. Transaction history tells you exactly what they've been doing. Those are the insiders. Chris Ferguson, for instance, filed this on the 16th of February, that he has been awarded a number of shares. He has 1.932 million shares in BBIG. Then you have Vroman Brett Earl James. He has 203,000 shares. So it tells you a lot. Now, track of insider purchases. Those are the insiders that purchased. Last purchase was on the 8th 2020. Actually, there was a purchase right here. Yeah, there you go. Kevin O'Donnell. That was the last purchase, and it was bought at $1.87. Okay, 2,000 shares. What else? Now, I'm interested to see whether this is what is the short interest on this. So what that means is how many people are actually shorting this, or the percentage, not how many people. It's is it a short squeeze candidate? Now, Fintel provides you with a short squeeze score, again from 0 to 100, and the possibility of this actually ticker being subject to short squeeze because it has been shorted so much. And BBIG, for example, has a score of 97.28%. So there is a major chance that this will be subject to short squeeze. Now, what else? Of course, if you need more data, remember I mentioned on Yahoo, it gives you every 2 weeks those short interest information. On Fintel, they provide it to you on a daily basis. So right here, it tells you exactly the FINRA short volume. It tells you the FINRA total volume, and it tells you short volume ratio right there, 45.15. Fails to deliver now. Short interest, daily Fintel updates. There you go, right here. It gives you how many shares were shorted, the days that they have to recover, shares outstanding, this is all in millions. And there you go. The short interest tells you 19.48%. So that's also high. So when combining the short interest percentage along with the score of 97.28, that makes things very interesting in order to evaluate the company. Now, in terms of filings, again, I have all the filings for Vinco Ventures right here. Okay, so these are the latest filings right here. But then if I want to see their 8K reports, then I would click on this tab and it will provide me with all the information about their current report. If I want to look at their financials, they're right here, and I can evaluate them accordingly. So the last financial was on the 23rd of August. So if I look at their financials, you can see right here they have total assets of 121 million in comparison to a year ago of 28 million. So that's absolutely fantastic. Their assets are definitely increasing. Their liabilities, okay, that's commitments. There you go. The liabilities, total current liabilities, right here, 8 million versus 11 million from a year ago. So this is great. Now revenues, again unaudited. So this was not audited from 3 months that ended on June 30th. We see the net revenue is 2.6 million. For 6 months, it's 5.25 million. Of course, it's a longer period of time. This is important. Gross profit 970,000, whereas with unaudited we have 1.8 million on for the 6 months. So again, this is a profitable company. Maybe not, they're not making as much money as other companies, but still it's profitable. Cash flow from operations, what have you, 241 million. Again, net loss from continuing operations. We know that they've lost a lot. They've spent a lot on operations. Let's just put it that way. And net cash used in operating activities, 9 million overall, and so forth. So you can go through the finances separately, but this looks like a company, obviously, that is operating. And what have you. So insider trading report, there you go as well. This, okay, so we've already discussed this. Sometimes it's very important to keep note of that. So we know that they haven't been selling their stock, which is great. These insider buying and selling reports are very, very important for me. So if I'm seeing the company actually selling today their stock, then that's a red flag for me. And I would have questions as to why they're selling, if they're expecting the stock to actually move up even more. Now, how I need to caveat that if they're selling, I don't know, 1,000 shares or 2,000 shares, then that's not a problem. I'm talking about selling of, like, let's say $500,000 or $1 million worth of shares, or 3 million or 4 million shares. Then that would make me worried a little bit that there might be some bad news coming up, or they might not think that the price is going to increase even further, or what have you. So that's what I'm saying about sales. However, if the company is buying more, if there are recent buys that are occurring in the last couple of days, so we don't have that example right here as of right now, because these are all awards, so they got these shares for free. But we do know that the last buy was in 2020, so they haven't been buying as of recently. You want to look for companies, for example, that have been doing a lot of recent buys. And this is what's cool about Fintel. They have a screener that tells you insider buying right there. So you click on it, and you'll notice significant insider buying that is happening, and it tells you the company is SOWGJNX. So let's, for example, go to Janux Therapeutics and look at the insider buying report, and we'll notice transaction history. Purchase. There was a purchase on the 16th of June, and it was at $17. So a lot of buying happening right there. Let's go back. Let's see SOWG. There were buys in July, and so forth. So you get the point. The point is, these insider buyers, especially if they're happening recently, are very important. Now, one thing that is actually quite cool about Fintel is that you can under your settings, you can go to alerts, and then they can send you an email or and notify you of all insider purchases of 25,000, of $100,000, over 1 million or 5 million. I have activated the 1 million and 5 million because those are massive buys that, if they're happening as of recently, I look at their stock right away and see how much did they buy at, and it could be an indication for an upward potential that is going to happen. There you can also get notified of all insider sales. So if they are doing an offering, an S1 filings, the S1 filings, typically when an offering happens, the stock tanks. And that's what happened with any today or earlier today, that they've announced an offering that was being made, and that tanked the price even below the offering. So those are also things that I keep note of. Now, last thing that I tend to do is then I go to the chart, and just like I did with OTC, I will go and try to analyze this chart and see where is my entry point in order to actually go ahead and take a position and invest further. Of course, if I didn't mention the fact that I didn't check their website. Typically, if you're on NASDAQ, you should have a website. But let's do this as an exercise. Google Vinco Ventures. There you go. So there you go, Vinco Ventures. There you go. So there you go. You have they obviously have a website. They have their SEC filings, the governance, the board of directors, board committees, company information. All this information is obviously available right here for you folks to actually read about. Now, investor relations, as I mentioned, Amy Carroll, and you have an email address, you have a phone number. Again, this is NASDAQ we're talking about right here, and New York Stock Exchange. They're more proper. The company address in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and what have you. You want to see the management team for the leadership. There you go. Provides you with the information about them. So everything is fine. Now, the last thing I would do is, again, I would go to Twitter and see what is the overall sentiment about the stock. So who's ready for Tuesday, beginning of the new BBIG run season and so forth. So there's plenty of talk even at this time about BBIG. Obviously this is a short squeeze candidate, so this is expected, but you know, this is the sort of information I look for. Now, their Twitter account, I really don't care. I care more about the company and their finances and making sure that it's a profitable company, that is that they have plans for growth and what have you. And of course, at the end, taking the right position in order to maximize my profitability. So hopefully you found value watching this video review, but basically you're doing the due diligence is supposed to make you feel confident about a company. It's supposed to make you validate whether they're BSing you or they're actually doing real work. You want to look for red flags. You want to look into their financials. You want to see if they're profitable or not. You want to see if what kind of acquisition is happening out there. Focus more on the information and less on what noise is out there. Of course, if there are a lot of people talking about a certain concern, then you should validate that concern. Find out whether it's right or wrong. Now, two ways of doing it. One is by actually doing your own research, or two, reaching out to investor relations and tell them openly, I've heard about this concern. What are your thoughts? Can you please validate whether this is accurate or not? And then you could make a decision whether you want to invest into that or not. But basically, that's pretty much it. It's an exercise of validating whether you are investing in the right company or not. And that's it, and that's all. So hopefully you found value watching this video review, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I wish you all the best, and you'll have more video reviews and trainings that I'll be putting up soon. The next one that I will be sharing is about how to identify short squeezes. Hopefully I'll be uploading that in the next couple of weeks. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I wish you all the best. Have a good night. Take care.